Welcome back. I've got Serah D'Laine on the line. Sarah, how are you today, hon?
I'm wonderful. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
Oh, glad to have you here. Love our conversation. So, for those that aren't familiar with you, and there might be a couple people, but not many, but why don't you share a little about you and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Sure. So, yes, my name is Serah D'Laine. I am a former, I like to say maybe child actor now since I started so young at 13. So, formerly professional actor, producer, now turned owner of Stage 8 Agency. We focus on branding, marketing, AI, social media, content creation, all of that. And then, of course, I use my personal brand to promote all of that. So, I'm a personal branding expert, AI savvy business strategist, if you will. Humbly say, digital media maven, just because how we're using content and digital to grow, scale businesses.
Yeah, it's beautiful work that you're doing and have done, and
Thanks.
the personal branding side of things for anybody well, even if you're applying for a job, you're branding, you're promoting yourself. As a former actor, you were doing that with auditions and reel tapes and the presentations and reading the scripts and standing in line with 40,000 other people that looked very similar to you, all the different nuances
Yeah.
that the public knows. And of course, you being in the industry, there's a lot of behind the scenes things that we don't see, some fun, some maybe not, but
Some always
uh,
not so fun. It's not a
yeah.
it's not a shiny day every day.
No, of course not, and that's that,
That's
as
the fun.
with, yeah, well, that's the creativity part of it. So, when, I followed your career to, what you're doing now, it's easy for me anyway to see, all or most of the connection points and how it's just kind of a natural progression, where you're utilizing obviously skills that you learned at a very early age on top of just, being outgoing and understanding how to communicate with people and all of that, but also understanding the importance of personal branding. And we talked a little bit about this in the pre-show, about a colleague of mine years ago that mentioned to me, when I was building up breakfast leadership, he said, it's cool what you're doing. You're getting, your name out there and in the niche or niche, depending on what part of the world you're from, that you're in. But don't forget to promote you, because without you, there wouldn't be breakfast leadership in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to start making sure that you include your own accolades into things when you're talking with organizations or speaking or anything you do, because too often, we see it with a lot of generations, they pour all the work into their business and everything, and they don't have any identification for themselves. So it's really important to focus on that, and love to hear your thoughts on that.
I love that you're bringing this into this conversation, like right off the bat, like way to just come in quick with like the most important, because sure, we can say personal branding. And I feel like it's become a buzzword. It used to be that everyone thought that was applied to celebrities only. Huge transition into if you are owning your own business or even the CEO, or like you said, you're wanting to get to that next ladder in your career. It's no longer like oh, maybe that could be like a good idea, or I might need that. Now it's a must. Now that's the most beneficial aspect of all of anything that you're doing, right? Anything you want to grow, promote, build. And you said the word promote, which I'm loving that we're touching on that, because whenever I'm working with somebody, and I have equally had this same challenge myself. So anything that I speak to, anybody that I work with, it's like I absolutely relate. I've had the same internal challenges. Um, but you go to create something, or you want to excel, right? So career, or you own your own business, you want to excel, you want to get to the next level. You have to be able to promote. And I think there's this maybe still a conversation that people think, oh, well, if I have my personal brand, then I'm making it all about me, or it's ego, or I don't want to put myself out there, and who am I to put myself out there, and who's going to listen to me, and all this internal dialogue, which everybody has. I have heard it every different which way. and it gets every single person stopped. And it's usually those that are excellent at what they do. They are the true experts. They truly have a vision. They truly have a desire and a passion to go after something bigger, right? They have big dreams. And then the sort of internal voice that wants to maintain being humble, right? Rightfully so. Like I feel like it's a human nature to just want to be and to be a good person, right? I mean, unless you're an asshole, you're an asshole. But like, we're not talking to them. So there's always an exception to the rule. Um, but I feel like I work with these people all the time, or I have conversations with people that they're like, okay, well, I build this great thing, and then they get stopped right when it's ready to promote it. And it's either because of that internal dialogue of I don't want to be seen as, or what if somebody says something negative. And I feel like if we don't kind of get in touch with that aspect first, then growth becomes stagnant. And I feel like everybody, it stems from, maybe you got made fun of when you were, in fifth grade or something like that. So it's so normal and it's not anybody's fault, but we have to have the conversation because I'm passionate about entrepreneurship and people being entrepreneurs. Even if you're in a career and you want to do it, and that's okay. But those that have this internal, I call it, right, the entrepreneurial spirit, like you see something more or bigger for yourself and you want to go after it, I 1000% support that. And I think we have had a really big lean into more people wanting to own their own businesses, or even if it's just a side hustle, so they can have a little bit more control and healthy power in their career, in their finances, and their money making, opportunities. So I'm a really big advocate on, kind of tapping into the psychology on what it is that gets us stopped. And then, because we can do all the strategies, we can, plan out everything for your brand, your business, but that internal, like getting in touch with that part of you that is holding you back for whatever reason, it always comes up every single time whenever somebody was wanting to like step into promoting, and that's what gets them stopped. So I think it's a necessary conversation.
Most definitely. And I was at a talk in Vegas years ago, and I forgot who the speaker was, but he talked about this a little bit, and he said, you know what? Eh, Put out crap 1.0, talking about your product or service.
Put out
What
crap
you've
1.0.
Yep, and then release
Sure.
crap 2.0 and then crap 3.0. Said, how many versions of Microsoft Windows are we at now? 11, 12, somewhere
Yeah.
in there? It's like, guess what? That means the previous versions ultimately they viewed as not good enough. It's like,
Hmm.
guess what? You have to put it out there. And and a reminder, it's like, well, or like I talk to authors all the time, or people are thinking, I'm thinking about writing a book. And before they even tell me what they want to write about, I say, write the book. And they go, well, you don't even know what it's about. I don't care. I said,
Write
there
it.
could be 1,000 copies of similar subjects at the bookstore, but not your voice, not your perspective, not your input, not your experiences, which are unique. And the world needs that. And I
But don't
remind
you
them,
think that they do it and then they get stopped with, I almost want to say, like, I don't know if it's, some people might relate to way I'm saying this, but some version of that rejection piece or fear of getting rejected, because they're going to do it and they're going to put it together and then not putting it out. It's like, well, what if somebody doesn't like it? Or right, there's that subconscious, they're going to be rejected, right? I know a thing or two about getting rejected 5 times a day in Hollywood. Like you just can't hear the no. So I love that you're saying like write the book, and that they can do it, and then it's going to get them stopped every single time.
yeah. Well, it's when people try to please everybody, I know the phrase is, if you want to please everybody, sell ice cream. Although I'm lactose intolerant, so you're not going to please me with that anyway. It's
And
gonna,
I'm
I
not
mean,
doing sugar right now, so that's, we're both
yeah,
out.
exactly. It's like, yeah, I'm not your target market, buddy. But
Yeah.
good for you. But
Yeah.
it there's going to be people that are going to like your stuff. There's going to be people that won't care.
Yeah.
If there's people that completely despise your stuff, well, now you're hitting something, because you're causing some,
A,
angst,
a yeah,
and right
little
now
ripple.
in this society, it's like, oh, this is horrible. Well, okay, great. Well, I'll use a real time case in point. Amazon Prime Video released War of the Worlds a couple weeks ago. Rotten
Hmm.
Tomatoes had it at 0%. I think it's up to 4% now. I actually watched it this morning because I'm always up for a train wreck. Let's see how bad this
Let's
movie
go.
is.
Oh gosh.
Ice Cube was in it, and the best way I
I
can
love
describe.
watching cheesy movies. They could be
Yeah,
really bad and I might think they're
you know what?
fantastic. Yeah.
Quite frankly, it felt more like a two-part NCIS episode. And it felt
Such a
like
good show
CBS,
though.
a really good show. It
Yeah.
had that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
Was it horrible? Absolutely not. No, it wasn't bad. There's little interjections of stories and dynamics and parental and supervision and government overreach. It threw a lot in it, and it was very
Mm.
modernized compared to the original War of the Worlds from who knows how old that movie was. But again, I saw it and everybody was like, "Oh, this is horrible." I'm like, "Okay, why is it horrible?" And I didn't look at any of the reviews. I'm like, you know what?
Everybody's going to be a critic.
Of
Everyone.
course, and I think
Yeah.
that's you have to get and understanding that and getting comfortable with it. I mean, it doesn't mean it doesn't sting. I mean, come on, you know this. I mean, when you were getting unfortunately rejected for all the roles that you applied to be a part of, like okay,
Yeah.
you know it, or anybody that's in sales, that the majority of the people are gonna
You're going to hear
say
no
you're gonna hear no all the
a
time. It's like
thousand times.
yeah,
Hmm.
get through those no's as quickly as you can so you can get to the yes. And
And I mean, I've also done some, things that I'm proud of, and I've done some things that I'm like, oh, that's embarrassing. You know what I mean? So going back to when you said, like, just put it out there and start with version 1.0. But again, I feel like, and I could relate to this. Like, I had a fear for a long time of like looking stupid. Like, I had my internal perfectionist that was like, oh, don't put out version 1.0 because then they'll see it. And so when you're saying, oh, just go put it out, there's that part of the brain. And like I said, it all goes into like the deeper aspects of psychology that if we're not like giving ourselves a little bit of credit, like give yourself, be nice to yourself and be like, you know what? It may not be the best version. And I always say, if you're going to put it out, you can put it out. And then when you put out the second one, then go delete the first one. Like if it's really, if that's what's going to get you stopped, if somebody is going to see it, put it out so that you can prove to yourself that you can, and then do another one and then go delete the first one. Like if that will really do it. Cause I think people get caught up in this. I'm going to put it out and then somebody's going to say something and either not like it, judge it, cancel culture it. You know what I mean? Like we're living in this time where everybody wants to have a voice, but not a lot of people are saying something, or a lot of people are
yeah,
just having an opinion
yeah,
and just because. And it's not, sometimes it's really destructive and it's not really supportive or moving society forward, but it is what's happening. So I guess it is moving society forward in a weird way. It's like we're moving through molasses, and people get stopped all the time. And I hate seeing that so much because
yeah,
they're brilliant and they have, like you said, they have that book and then they're not writing it or they're not putting out content. Another one that's actually been coming up a lot is because of the algorithm. So people are like, well, I want to put out content, I want to share my voice, but who's going to see it? Because the algorithm keeps changing and it almost makes it like unfair that they're going to put out content and less than 2%, less than 1% on some platforms don't, like, it doesn't get seen, it doesn't get shown, it doesn't get put out. And so that's kind of a thing that I sort of feel like, it kind of takes the wind out of, the entrepreneurial sales of like, or entrepreneur sales of like, well, why should I then if it's just not gonna be seen? Or why should I if somebody's gonna, try to cancel it or pull me down? And that's just that, we either choose to keep going and keep pushing forward, or it gets us stopped. And that's, we're just being real about it.
yeah. And a thing that I remind people of, especially because I'm a big advocate for, finding mentors, finding people that have, done the work before
1000%.
you and reach out to them. And, the majority of people I've ever spoke to that was, maybe a year or two ahead of me in what I was doing in my career or work or
Yeah.
whatever, were always gracious to help, never condemned, gave some, constructive advice, but never put down. And, the
Yeah.
people that are being critics and saying your stuff is garbage and all that stuff,
What are they
hey,
doing?
yeah, yeah, where's their book?
Absolutely.
Where's their content? And, for me, I do a lot of work in, workplace culture and stress management and burnout
Yeah.
prevention and all of that. And, I tell people, especially if they're stressing out and they stop, they're an entrepreneur and they stop what they're going to do. They're getting ready to launch the greatest thing yet, kind of thing. And then they quit. And I say, what? Society loses when that happens because all the
Right.
innovations that we love and use without even thinking about it now, this technology we're using right now was an idea at one point, and some people took a risk, decided, yeah, we're scared, we're going to do it anyway. They launched it, and here we are. But I tell people, what, just do it anyway, and if it doesn't work, then don't beat yourself up over it. Life does that good enough anyway. You don't need to beat yourself up. Please don't. But
I feel
ultimately,
like we say that, but at the same time, everybody still kind of does
oh
it.
yeah, of course,
Like,
because
you know what I
well,
mean? It's like, oh, don't beat
yeah.
yourself up. And then, like, everybody's
Oh
still like,
yeah.
we do. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's not going
It's
to go
the
away.
no, but understanding that, and for me,
Yeah.
again, I catch it all the time. Not every time, but all the time. I'm like, okay, why am I down about this? Why is this bugging me? What about this is causing how I'm feeling right now? Of course, with wearable health technology and all that kind of stuff, it can tell you, okay, well, your heart rate's up, or this is there, or you feel irritated, or
Right.
you got
High
some
blood
aches and pain.
pressure.
Yeah,
As an
exactly.
entrepreneur, everybody's got high blood
Oh,
pressure.
everybody's taking HBP meds, It's like,
Right.
it's like, yeah, it's like my blood pressure is high. Yeah, no, I'm only gonna buy, 3 Red Bulls right now. Oh, could I get, that
Oh,
Monster
gosh.
Energy drink? Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna try that new Mountain Dew,
Oh,
8 billion blast. It's like, what does that do? It's like
oh my
you
gosh.
you can hear purple when you drink this. Oh, cool. I want some of that. It's just, again, when it comes back to just launching your personal brand, your business brand, whatever you're doing, it's
Yeah.
important for you to do it. The world needs it. There's a reason why we're here. We're all creating things. We all create. Even this
Well, and everybody
former
wants to
accountant
stand
creates.
out,
Oh
right? The
yeah,
creators wants to stand out. Like
of
having your
course.
personal brand is the number one way to stand out because you are the product.
Hmm.
Like, well, and I shouldn't say that you're like you are selling you, but it's not that you're for sale. It's and now in the face of AI, like we want human, we want
Yeah.
things that we can connect to and relate to. We're doing this and people are going to see this. This is like, well, we're not live. I was going to say live recording. Like this is actual recording. AI at some point might be able to do this. How are we going to differentiate? We're going to have a greater desire for human, authentic, genuine, maybe even live might, increase viewership now potentially. I don't know. We'll see. I'm always an advocate for live, but that scares a lot of people too.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And
Dive
and
into the deep end, go for it, do
yeah,
it. But I'm
I
like, oh
well,
God.
Well, for me, whenever I'm on a show, I just
Hmm.
assume that it's live. And it doesn't bug me. And I've shared this story before, as far as, I don't have a fear of public speaking. I know that's a common fear. I know a lot of people would choose death over public speaking, which I find very questionable and concerning, but they say that they get it. And I get that. I used to be deathly afraid of public speaking too, but then
Yeah.
I got I got chicken pox when I was 21 years old, and I had them everywhere but my feet. I'll let your imagination run wild for a second. That was not comfortable. And I was in college, and I had a business writing class. And of course, when you have chicken pox, you get quarantined for a week. So I
Hmm.
missed the class that I was supposed to give a presentation. And I'd been dreading this presentation for ever since I picked the class and I looked at the curriculum. It's like presentation, 50% of your grade. I'm like, oh, and so I'm like, dreading it, but I was prepared and getting ready to do it. And then, of course, I got chicken pox and, notified the professor. And then the next week, I was cleared to, go back in, but I still looked absolutely horrible, red, swollen, looked like,
Mm.
the worst acne outbreak in the history of mankind. And here I am,
Oh,
in
I'm
my 20s.
sorry.
So I looked horrible, but I went to school. Of course, everybody's like, or give me this scary look. And then I walk into the classroom, and of course, the class is kind of looking at me too, like, what the heck? But, the professor had warned everybody and let everybody know, okay, by the way, one of the students
Mm.
has, chicken pox. So, be on the lookout. And, so everybody was cool with it, but they still were like, whoa. And then the professor walks in. She sees me. She goes, Mike, can you come out in the hallway for a minute? I'm like, yeah. So went out there,
Mm.
said, look, not supposed to do this, but if you don't want to give the presentation, I'm going to give you a C grade. You don't have to give the presentation. I'm going to give you a C.
Aw.
You're doing really well. You'll probably end up with a B in the class, but that's not a big, you're not like an honor student. I mean, I graduated with honors, but I wasn't like the 4.0 have to graduate kind of thing. And
Okay.
I looked at her and I said, I've been dreading this for, at that point, 6 weeks. Like,
Mm.
the speech is ready. I've rehearsed it. I'd like to give it. So I did. So I gave the presentation. I don't remember what the talk was
With
about.
chickenpox,
With
with
the chick,
all
yeah, well,
the
looking like hell.
however
So
that made you feel.
yeah, so
Oh,
it was a
awesome.
7 minute talk, and at the end, the class gave me a standing ovation. And again, I know the talk was not good, but they gave me a standing ovation, and the professor goes, "Why did you give Mike a standing ovation?" And they said, "If he can get up in front of a class of
Mm.
peers looking like that and give a talk, he deserves a standing ovation." And from that point forward, I'm like, I'm never going to be afraid to speak again because hopefully I never look like that again. And
Right.
but it was one of those gut check things. Yes, am I scared? Of course. Do it anyway. And I know that's a big, big hurdle. We've talked about that. It's a big hurdle for a lot of people, but just, quoting a famous shoe company, just do it. Put it out there
Mm.
because you won't know if you don't. And I'd rather and go, well, that didn't work out. Great. And we see throughout history all the inventions, artists, musicians, actors that
Mm.
have done all kinds of different roles that were, you know, not worthy, and you can find
Questionable.
them, you can find them on some of the free streaming things like Tubi or Pluto or something like that, and you're like, oh wow, it's
Right.
like I didn't even know they were in that movie, but then all of a sudden you see them, holding awards because they were able to land and do something that was in alignment with who they are and brought out all the talent. Same thing with musicians, all the songs that they've written. Okay, yeah, two or three hits, but the rest, there was 300
Yeah.
songs that no one has ever heard or don't care to.
But they put it out there
But
and
they
they're
put
out
it
there.
out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and everybody's going to make fun of something. There's things that people make fun of me for, and and one time or at one time, it kind of was like, oh, like it made me feel bad where, that internal people pleaser was like, oh, they don't like it, and then that means they don't like me, right? And I made that mean that. And and then I was like, wait a second. Well, those anybody that's criticizing, I'm like, well, what were they doing at 13 through, 16 all the way into their 20s? Like, I'm doing stuff and some things were questionable. Some things, like I said, I'm really proud of, and it was fun and it was the experience. I wouldn't take any single one of them back. I wouldn't redo any. I don't have any regrets of anything that I've done. And anything that some people made fun of, I'm like, okay, show me what you did. Show me what you did at 13. Show me what you did in your mid 20s. And like, it's bound to, maybe it won't, maybe not everybody's going to love it. And they're not supposed to, but
Right.
I think everybody's got a little of that, people pleaser. You put stuff out there. Of course, you don't put it out there with the intention that you want somebody to not like it, right? That's not what anybody does. But that internal question, I just, yeah, I'm just passionate about talking about it because I feel it and I empathize with it, and I hear it still again every single day from people, whether they're just starting or whether they're just starting at a new level and they've already reached success and now they're going for something even bigger. And those same fears and negative thoughts always come up. And I'm like, but look at what you're doing and look at what you've achieved. And what's that saying? I don't know who said it, but it's like, anybody who's doing better than you is not going to criticize you. And
Right.
so anybody who's saying anything negative, like they can't be doing better than you. They can't be. And that's why gossip, is behind your back because the people they're behind you and that's not where you're going. And I've kind of always just had that frame in my mind where I'm like, okay, am I looking in my rearview mirror? Am I looking through my windshield? Like, where am I going?
Right.
And sometimes I have to say that to myself because I'll be my own worst critic. And
Of
when I'm
course.
working with people, they are their own worst critic, and it's just, yeah, it takes the fun out of it, but I think that's why I love parts work, psychology a lot, hence maybe because it ties so well and I pull a lot and leverage a lot of my training from acting and character development and emotional intelligence and really defining identity. But when we can do that for ourselves, when you can create something that's not fake. It's not fake it till you make it. I don't agree with that. It's not fabricated. Everything has to come from within you, right? If you tap into something or you have a desire to become a version of you, it comes from within you. You're not taking it from somewhere else. You're taking it from whatever inspiration it comes from, right? But if you feel it, then it's already within you. And so when we get to kind of those stages where people are, holding themselves back, or the self sabotage word, then we look at like, okay, well, who is your future self identity? And who do you need to create or envision and thus then integrate and embody so that that gap of where you are with where you want to be kind of gets shortened. You kind of like jump in to that future version of yourself. That's where, to me, it gets really fun, and I think that that's probably the most powerful work. We're all building whatever we're building. I
Mhm.
feel like because we have a desire to become that next best self. And that's one of the ways that when we're doing personal branding, that's one of the ways that we kind of do things a little bit differently. A lot of people will take past stories and brand from who you've been and your past experience. And while that absolutely lends to your origin story, we always start with your future self identity, and we brand you from your future self, if that makes sense. Like, who are you stepping into? Who are you becoming? We don't need to brand your personal brand from your past. That's looking in the rearview mirror. We need to brand who are you stepping into and becoming. And that can be, to me, it's very exciting, but it will challenge
Mhm.
all of the whatever version that wants to stay safe and stay the same, and oops, and we have some really great NLP and hypnotherapy tools to really just like squash all of those limiting beliefs and like get to that next future self really quickly, or efficiently, I should say. So that to me is the most fun.
Oh yeah, and I love that approach too, and because it's much like writing down goals, and people write them down. Don't just keep them in your
Right.
head. Write them down. What's my I ask people all the time, especially if they're stressed or burned out. Okay, what's your ideal day? What does that
Mm,
look like? Tonight at 10 o'clock or whenever you go to bed, what, in your opinion, would have been a great day? What does that day look like? Okay,
mm,
well, guess what? You just designed your day. Now go to it. And the same thing with, okay, you want to be whatever you're aiming to be for the next level. And I love how you mentioned it a moment ago about people that have been, you know, quote unquote successful. Successes in the eyes of their own
of
opinion, but
course.
they have been really good at growing their business, and they're at a level that they couldn't have imagined a few years ago, and now they're trying to level up again, and they're going back to that first day when they registered the website domain, and they're like, okay, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to put on it? It's like it's like they got hit with the Men in Black pen and just and forgot everything, and like, whoa, 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 and it's the brain, and you know it. And I love how you use
Mm.
the psychology and NLP and everything else, because that is the barrier. Who's the bottleneck? it's usually us. And it not intentionally, I hope,
Of course not.
uh,
Of course
but
not.
but it's just,
Yeah, no one goes out to be an entrepreneur and so that they can be like, "Yes, I'm going to do this so I can intentionally hold myself back and self-sabotage because I'd like
mhm.
that experience in this life." No,
Yeah,
thanks.
exactly. I mean, if
Maybe
you
on
want
a
to do that,
deeper
just
spiritual level,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, 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 maybe double check those Akashic records. There might be something in
Yeah.
there that might give you a clue on what in the world, why am I doing this? It's like,
Why
can I,
did I
can I,
plan this for myself?
can I go to a different library? No, these are your records. It's like, but
Mhm.
you can change them.
Yeah.
Okay, and you probably should. So, Sarah, I've loved this conversation. Where can people find out more about you and all this awesome work you're doing?
Oh, this has been awesome. And I love just how organic. I had no idea what you were going to ask me or what we were going to talk about. So hopefully hopefully somebody heard one piece today that can, help them move forward or not get stopped rather. But thank you so much for having me. I have two platforms. So one is SarahDelaine.com, which is my personal brand's website. We still do courses. There's a wonderful newsletter, the Profitable Personal Brand newsletter, that's on that. I wanted to build something that I wanted to read that would have tips and strategies for growing your business and getting through all that self doubt or self sabotage stuff. And so I'm really, really excited about that we just kicked in this year. And then for those that want a little bit more done for you services, Stage 8 Agency. We have, branding, content marketing, things like that, social media, all of that. So, if anything, if people want to, get in touch with me directly, I have my team support me, but I will always either check my LinkedIn DMs or my Instagram DMs. So, shoot me a message. I'd love to connect.
Awesome. I'll definitely have that in the show notes. So, Sarah, continue being you. The world
You
needs more of
too.
you. So, thanks so much for being on the show today. Really
You
appreciate it.
too, Michael. You're an absolute gem. I appreciate you so much. Thanks so much.